everybody. Welcome to Initiation into Mystery, our 15-part series on the mysteries of the rosaries. Tonight is our very last episode.
It is.
We have reached a kind of ending. And I say a kind of ending because, interestingly, we've reached an ending that's no ending at all. And that's the great secret of these mysteries, the great teaching of them. In the last mystery, the Assumption, Mary is assumed into heaven, body and soul. And it's as if, it's the death of Mary, although she doesn't die. And today we get to the coronation. Now, we've had 3 crownings already in the rosary. The first crowning is in the Nativity.
Yep.
Where the baby crowns as it emerges from the mother's body. That's the word that's actually used to describe that moment the head appears.
Yep.
The mother's body is our original crown that crowns our crown chakra.
Yeah.
And
the second is the crown of thorns, the third sorrowful mystery.
And then the second is the third.
Second.
And the third in the glorious mysteries is the Pentecost, when they're crowned with flames, when their crown chakras open to the divine. And so we have these 3 crowns: the crown of birth, the crown of sorrow, and then the crown of glory and realization. But all of these crowns, all of these prayers add up to the one thing we've been doing all along, which is weaving a crown of our prayers for the beloved mother of us all.
So we said last week that, I quoted a friend of mine who once said that if you want to know what the point of a story is, look at where it ends. So the point of the rosary is to crown Our Lady as Queen of Heaven and Earth. And in fact, that point was the original point of the rosary, even before there were mysteries, right? When there was only a Hail Mary, and it was just repeated 50 times.
And before there was Christianity or religion of any kind, what there was, as far as we know, was weaving a crown of flowers to place on a statue of a goddess.
Right.
And, for a Nana all the way back, we see this in India, we see this in the Middle East, we see this across Europe. How do we show the lady we love her? We crown her with flowers.
Right.
And these prayers, each rosary, there's a folktale Clark always tells. He tells at the beginning of The Way of the Rose about a young man. Maybe it's worth retelling here because we're at the coronation.
I was thinking about this story just today. This is, there's a very, very old class of stories, not just one story, it's many stories. Mm-hmm. And don't do that.
Yeah. You can just make it a little bigger if that's okay.
You can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So it's a class of stories. There are many, many stories like this. Endless legends. So you're gonna have to stop trying to fix the problem.
I'm just gonna fuss with it a little bit. Well, you talk.
Okay, I can't.
Now we're irritating each other. We've done so well in our teaching, and now we're gonna. And now, you know what? Clark's gonna have to not be irritated for 5 minutes.
All right. So it's a class of stories, and there are many, many legends. The legend gets started, and it spreads all across Europe, and it's more than a legend. It's really an instruction manual because it tells you basically all you need to know to say the rosary. The story goes like this. There was once a very young and pious, simple boy whose great joy each day was to weave a crown of roses for Our Lady's statue. And he would do this every day. This is what he loved the most to do. And so Our Lady gave him the idea to go to a monastery, right, where he would supposedly be able to, be completely and utterly devoted to her. It seemed like a good idea. So he goes to the monastery, but as soon as he gets there, the abbot says, no, that's a pagan custom. You can't do that anymore, and forbids it. Okay. In some stories, they just say he's too busy and has too many other duties and can't do it. So he becomes so despondent and so depressed at this that he resolves to leave the order and to go back to ordinary life. Okay. So he's passing by the chapel on his way back home, and he stops in to pay his respects to the statue of Our Lady in the monastery chapel. And she stands before her. The statue comes to life and says, "Don't be downcast and disheartened because you are no longer able to weave a crown of flowers for my head, for I will teach you to weave a crown of your prayers." And she then teaches him the Hail Mary and says, "Just repeat this, and that's my crown." So he starts to say the Hail Marys, and for each Ave Maria that comes out of his mouth, an actual rose emerges. And in some legends, Our Lady herself takes the roses and makes the crown. In another, it's the an angel who does it. But the result is that she gets her crown after all at the end of the story. This is called the Aves as Roses legends, and this is the sort of the real origin story of the Rosary. And it goes back to a custom, as Perdita said, that is thousands and thousands of years
Tens
old.
of thousands of
We
years.
have no idea who first wove a chaplet of roses for the goddess. We only know that it predates religion itself as we know it.
And that's what we're doing. And this is what we've been up to. We're crowning Our Lady with our prayers. We're crowning her with our love. We're crowning her with our devotion. And she's crowning us. She's surrounding our bodies, our heads, with her body and her love.
Right.
But there's some interesting narrative things going on in this mystery. And there's some real Da Vinci Code secrets I want to delve into if we can. Because here's the most interesting thing. In the Middle Ages, everybody wanted to end here with the coronation, but the priests did not. The priests did not like that the last two mysteries of the Rosary, the Assumption and the Coronation,
were not in the Bible.
They're not in the Bible. They're not part of the Gospels. They're not part of Scripture. They're not part of the New Testament. They're completely derived from folk tradition. And yes, they're clearly looking at a folk tradition much older than Christianity.
Right. The mere term, the mere title, Queen of Heaven, was the title that was given to Isis and to Inanna before her, and to probably even older goddesses. So this is a very, very old title.
And we're arriving at Mary as Queen of Heaven and Earth, not Mary as the human vessel who holds the God within her, but Mary as the queen and ruler of everything.
Right.
And so it's very, very clear what they're talking about. But it's something I like to look at about the endings of stories is in Shakespeare, we always say a story can end two different ways. It can end as a tragedy or it can end as a comedy.
Right.
And in the tragedies, it ends up with everybody's dead. That would be how the New Testament ends.
Yeah, right. Basically.
Revelations.
Right. Yeah. Revelations,
blood,
martyrdoms, the destruction of the world.
The end of the temple, blood filling the rivers.
Right.
That's where the New Testament ends. And Clark sometimes says the Bible is a thought experiment that asks what happens when human beings have dominion over the world and practice agriculture and the domestication of animals.
Yeah. What happens when human beings hijack the entire ecosystem? That's really the question that the Bible is posing. And the answer is Revelation.
The answer is apocalypse. And we find ourselves standing right at that hinge moment because we stand on the edge in the midst of the sixth extinction of all life on earth. Yeah. Here we are. 2,000 years ago, they knew it was coming. They thought it meant the destruction of the temple. It was probably beyond them to imagine the kind of ecological devastation that we were headed into. And yet a part of them knew it as well. But stories can end another way as well. They can end in weddings. They can end with the hieros gamos, the sacred marriage. This is an idea as old as the crowning.
Yeah.
And that is that when the goddess and her consort come together, the world is remade. The world is reborn. The world comes back to life. Babies are going to be made. Life is going to continue. We're not talking about apocalypse. We're talking about weddings and baptisms and parties. And in fact, in the Middle Ages, in the coronation, Mary is often shown being crowned next to Jesus, but not as an old lady.
Oh, yeah. She's never old.
Never.
You'll never find, Mary, according to tradition, is either 63 or 72 years old at the time of her death. But you never see an older woman in any of the art. She's always young. And often, in fact, when Mary is portrayed as Queen of Heaven, sometimes she's shown next to Jesus. At other times, she's shown holding the baby Jesus with a crown on her head.
Or the baby, or let's not get too. And here's where I'm going to go with a little Da Vinci Code, because here comes the question. We begin with Mary Magdalene, and we begin with Mary Magdalene resurrecting the consort, the gardener, as she did in all the Mediterranean myths, to impregnate her. And now we have this sacred marriage. Is it between Mary Magdalene and Yeshua? Is it between Mary and God? If you look at the medieval art, it looks like it's between Mary Magdalene and Yeshua. And what they're saying is this is the sacred marriage, the meeting of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the meeting of sunlight and earth and water to create and renew the green life of this planet. And that is where we end the rosary. We end with a marriage, fertility, sex, love, the promise of all of these things. That this does not end with a celibate priesthood exerting its dominion and creating an empire of religion around the world. It ends with an ancient celebration of fertility.
And here's a point I think it's worth coming back to. We've touched on this a number of times in this series, but this is the moment to really sort of drive it home and think about it at once more. And that is the difference between a linear story and a circular story. The gospel, the Bible itself is a linear story in the beginning, at the end, right? A lot happens in the middle, much of it bad. The rosary is a circular story. It really ends where it begins and begins where it ends. The reason why Mary is shown in paintings very young and holding the infant Christ is because the story is meant to connect with itself. The 15 mysteries, they're not like 3 sets of towers going up. They're not like a linear storyline. They're wrapped around one another like the Ouroboros, the Ouroboros, or whatever, however you say that.
Snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, snake eating its own tail, right? And this is a symbol of inclusivity and completion.
It's also a symbol of rebirth and reincarnation.
Right.
And for indigenous peoples, people who are genuinely living sustainably rather than pretending to live sustainably,
Right.
The most sustainable idea is rebirth and reincarnation. Because in some indigenous cultures, there's no word for great-great-grandmother. That word is child. You are perpetually being reborn into the world you have created. I sometimes ask people, do you want to be reborn where you live? Would you be reborn where you are right now, again and again and again? For our Paleolithic ancestors, the answer was yes, of course. Of course I want to be. This is gorgeous. Of course, I'm living in this kind of perpetual holding.
And that's worth thinking about, because what we have done, in that, millennia-long thought experiment is we have created a world into which many of us do not wish to be reborn.
We have created a world as if we could abandon it and leave it when we were done with it, and rocket ship to heaven, to Mars, to the great rapture of the geeks. We could leave our bodies. The disembodiment of the spiritual life has allowed us to destroy the earth.
The rapture of the geeks that Perdita is talking about is the idea that you can upload your consciousness into the cloud and digitalize life, right? Now, this is, if you want to know what the smartest, quote, smartest people in the world are thinking right now, they're thinking of ideas like this, or ideas like interplanetary travel, Elon Musk and people like this. This is just proof positive that a person can have a lot of money, a lot of technology at their disposal, and a lot of big ideas, and still be abjectly stupid, because there's no way that we're going to be able to survive off of this planet. That we're made of the dirt of this planet, and we exist, by virtue of all the other.
Let me get really
beings.
practical.
Yeah.
We have a gut biome. We have a complicated gut biome. And that gut biome regulates our brain. It regulates many of our bodily systems in ways we barely understand. And that gut biome is created by the bacteria and, yes, the viruses in our environment, by the dirt of this environment.
Right. That's right.
And our body, these bodies, are a part of the body of the earth. Our Lady said her first teaching on the rosary is where we've arrived. The first thing she said about the rosary, and she said everything was contained here. Yeah. Everything else was elaboration. She said, the rosary is my body. We're holding on to our body. We take it, we hold it in our hands. My body is the body of the earth. Your body is one with that body. What cause could there be for fear? Yeah. The fear arises when we separate ourselves from our own bodies. We separate ourselves from the body of the earth, and we imagine leaving the body of our mother. Because in truth, our mother births us into the world, takes us back, and rebirths us into the world. It's like tides coming in and out. We're always coming in and coming back, going and coming. And what we teach ourselves how to remember that by praying the rosary round and around and around. And again, it's really one of the things I do a lot these days is I listen to language people are using. And I'll tell you their language I really watch for. Anything that privileges linearity, ascension, up and away language.
Growth economy.
Growth economy. We can evolution. We're going to get better and better and better and better and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually we're going to be their dominance hierarchies. Right. I'm going to listen for the language of domination. How do we re-enter circles of inclusion, circles of radical inclusivity?
And cooperation and collaboration.
And the rosary takes us at the end and gives us the answer, which is the greatest glory is this union of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine at the end of the rosary. This is what's going to rebirth the world. Every firefly in our yard this summer was praying the rosary to meet and create the coronation. Every bird.
Very simply, they just do one blink at a time. It's like one prayer at a time. It's like bead to bead to bead. If you watch the way actually a firefly moves in the night, it's like a prayer.
Connor, you asked about light. I'm not sure, and you talk about illuminating and light. That's another thing I watch for. I watch for privileging light over dark. That's Connor, right. I watch for that all the time. and that darkness, babies grow in the darkness of our womb. The nighttime darkness, imagine a world where the lights are on 24/7. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine it. That is our world.
But you know what we do to prisoners to torture them? We keep the lights on all the time. And what happens is they go crazy. Yeah. And in fact, Clark wrote a whole book about this. There have been books written about it. Without darkness, we will go mad. Yeah. And so, yes, light is one of the things that I look at. Light, linearity, the absence of a circular thinking, of a radical inclusivity. That if we're entering, we don't want to think about, I'm going to get better and better. Because if I'm going to get better and better, that means somebody else maybe not getting better and better.
The rosary is a dark prayer, not dark in the sense that a lot of people speak of it, but it's dark in the sense that it invites us to enter into a liminal, numinous sort of dream space, right? It invites us, it's like the mists of Avalon, sailing into the mist. You enter into a place where things are not quite so cut and dry. Things, you don't see the outlines of things so clearly. You don't see the borders between things so clearly. And you're able to experience intimacy, love, union, the blurring of boundaries between self and other. Okay.
And lately I've been finding myself in a lot of situations, particularly political situations, and a lot of situations saying, I don't know, but Our Lady does.
Right.
I'm not supposed to know. There are things that are well above my pay grade as a human being. And the great problem has been is we've pretended that we know. Yeah. We keep thinking we've come up with the answer, and we're creating, I keep thinking that we're like toddlers saying to their mother, don't worry, Mommy, I'll clean up the mess in the kitchen. And Mom goes, no, go to bed. Looking at language, this will become another dogma of censorship. No, it's not censorship, Lori, at all. It's deconstructing the kind of the patriarchy that has become so embedded in our way of thinking. Yeah. It's not censorship. In fact, it's radical inclusivity. When you're looking at linearity, when you're talking perpetually about enlightenment, you're actually participating in a very long misogynist endeavor that has been created.
But you know what? It oftentimes didn't begin that way. I'll give you a good example. This is a very, very old story, one of the earliest legends about the Buddha.
Yeah.
When the Buddha, of course, became enlightened at night. Most people don't know that, right? In the Ushitora hour, the hour, I think, between the tiger and the ox, maybe. Anyway, it's about somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. And the tempter Mara comes to try to sort of get him off his seat of enlightenment, right? To sort of shake him or challenge him. And he tries everything. He sends, all kinds of temptations. He sends demons to terrify him. Nothing works. And finally he says, who bears witness to your right to sit on the seat of enlightenment? And the Buddha reaches down with a finger and touches the earth and says, I call the earth as my witness. He doesn't point at the sky and say God in heaven, or he doesn't evoke any image of the transcendent. In fact, he does just the opposite of that. He touches the earth. I often think of that finger is like an equal sign. He's saying, I am this. And in one legend, it's actually the goddess of the earth who comes out at that moment to proclaim his enlightenment. His enlightenment doesn't consist of what later Buddhists have said it to be. It consists of an understanding of his fundamental oneness with the earth.
But we've lived in patriarchal times, and Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, all of the Abrahamic faiths, all of these patriarchal faiths have worked really hard for many thousands of years to take away privilege and to create dominance hierarchies. Connor says, isn't this decolonization? Absolutely. The language of darkness as evil has been first directed at women. Yeah. Women were a force of darkness because babies come out of the darkness of our bodies. Purity becomes all the purity laws, the ritual purity laws are a way of demonizing women's bodies that bleed. And so, women are made to feel dirty so that you create these sort of images of a Virgin Mary who,
stainless steel incubator.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't bleed and doesn't poop and doesn't have an ordinary body like everybody else. And so it's not telling people what they can and can't say, Lori. I don't want to get sidetracked too much about this. I'm seeing your quote here. What I'm trying to do is open up the lost realms of darkness and mystery. They have been taken away from us as women and spiritual seekers.
And let's come back for a moment to the mysteries and what the mysteries are and what they're not.
And what is a mystery? We're engaged in a mystery religion.
Right. So the mysteries are just the barest outline of a story. The mysteries are literally an invitation to storytelling. They don't, tell us a great deal. The worst excesses, in rosary literature are those books written by Catholic bishops or, quote, experts, where they give you 15 chapters and each chapter is about a mystery, and they purport to tell you what the mystery means and what it's about.
It's a dogma delivery system.
It's a dogma. That's exactly
you
right.
Obey.
They're always very, very pious, and and really not much in the spirit of actually praying the rosary. They're more of an impediment to praying the rosary than they are an aid to praying the rosary. The rosary gives you just enough, and it invites you into a sort of twilight realm where you can imagine the story yourself. You can find yourself in it. You can see it in different ways. But it invites you to participate in it.
And what happens when we tell a story that ends with the realization of our own heart's desire?
Yeah.
Over and over again, where that becomes a possibility, where marriage and fertility and rebirth and reunion
Mm.
And I'm not speaking just of, heterosexual marriage, but a union of love.
Yeah.
That love, there are many, if you look at the natural world, there are a lot of different ways beings love each other. But the coming together in love, there are. I mean, there are animals that are male and then they become female when they meet each other, and then there are mushrooms.
Our Lady said once, we said early on, we were trying to get the Way of the Rose started and everything. So what do you really need to like get a Way of the Rose, group started like in a city somewhere? And she said, you need a breeding pair. And we thought, wow, like really? He says, well, not breeding. We don't have to have children. They don't even have to be male and female, but they have to be two people who are spiritual friends and who
love each other,
love one another, and play off one another,
and want to play together the way Clark and I have played
and
doing this
spark with one another, and help one another to create something that's bigger than either one of them, right?
Yeah. But that's where the Rosary ends. It doesn't end. The linear story of the Bible ends in Apocalypse. And we have told a story to ourselves where we can hardly imagine our way out of the apocalypse. And the mysteries of the Rosary, which go back, as we've said, to the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, to the Eleusinian mysteries, say, re-enter the story that nature tells you. Because that's a circular story. The moon turns in a circle and it goes through cycles.
Right.
The sun and the seasons tell a circular story. The tides tell a circular story. The plants are born, plants are die, things come, things go, things come back. Everything is reborn. It's the first law of thermodynamics.
Conservation of energy.
Nothing goes anywhere.
Right.
Nothing goes anywhere. It's all here. We're here. The world we're going to be reborn to is the world we have made. Susanna, we really want to do a whole series on the tarot and the Rosary.
Well, I don't know. I think we have to collaborate with a bunch of, we have
but
so
we
many
need
wonderful
to do
tarot
it.
people.
But we need to do a whole series on the tarot and the Rosary, because the tarot and the Rosary, the traditional Rosary we pray today, emerge in the same area of the world at the exact same time. And they're both encoding these ancient mysteries.
A lot of the same mysteries and a lot of the same storylines. But Susanna says, I have been reflecting a lot about the Rosary, the Tarot, and the hero's journey, and I cannot help but see the Coronation as the world, the last of the major arcana. And in fact, the figure of the world is I believe, sometimes shown with a crown of flowers surrounding her body. Sometimes it inscribes her body, and I think in some cards she's actually wearing it on the top of her head. So it's clearly a reference to Our Lady. And that card basically telegraphs what Our Lady said in the beginning, and which was her first teaching about the Rosary, which is, my body is the body of the world, right? She says, the Rosary is my body, and my body is the body of the world. Your body is one with that body. What cause could there be for fear? And that world card basically stands for that and says that.
And what we have to do is find ourselves again inside the body of the world. The antidote to fear is to know that our bodies, these bodies we live in, are not something to be escaped from, but to claim the joy of bodies, as we do in marriage, as we do in any kind of union. And that we claim the joy of our bodies, the possibility of our bodies. We re-enter the body of the world and the body of nature. That is where the real mysteries lie, and it's where the kind of fairy tale ending of the Rosary lies. Just after this mystery, we could pick up tomorrow, because we have a marriage, and then the very next moment, a woman is deciding whether or not she's going to say yes to pregnancy. So it's really, we go right from the wedding to pregnancy. So where is the end of the Rosary? Where is the beginning? A really fun thing to do, and I've done this many times, is to start the Rosary arbitrarily in another mystery. And feel a Rosary that begins anywhere you want, and find out what happens when you end it somewhere else.
The possibilities are kind of endless. I see that Laurie said, after the tower comes the star. You're right. And that star card is also thought by some to be a reference to Stella Maris, the Star of the Sea, one of the oldest names for Mary. And yes, there are just endless possibilities once we start to talk about the tarot. I think we have to get Michael McQueen and
Susanna, I hope you would like to look at
a dozen other people together.
I think we should do like a Zoom riff on the tarot.
Right.
I think maybe we'll do that for fun this winter.
I think it's a good idea.
I think a fun adventure. The next, I just want to share with everybody, the Feast of the Coronation is coming up. The Feast of the Coronation is in August. And interestingly, the Feast of the Assumption and the Feast of Coronation are in August. And we were just talking with our daughter today about these are the two great big holidays of the Rosary.
Right.
And yet they happen at a time when the modern world doesn't have any holidays. Yeah. It's just holiday season. It's just August. It's just when everybody goes on vacation pre-COVID.
Well, if we want to go really, really way, way back in time, those two mysteries happened in August, and August was the time
here we go.
during the Upper Paleolithic when all children were conceived. Originally, human females were fertile only in late summer.
Yeah, because you'd finally eaten enough carbohydrates to get your body fat back up, and to come into estrus again.
Yeah.
And so that was when you
conceive in August and give birth in spring. Right.
That was the plan. And then you'd be pregnant during the winter, which keep you warm. As anyone who's been pregnant knows, you certainly don't need a blanket when you're pregnant, 9 months pregnant. But so that was the original time. And what was August about? The Feast of the Coronation. That August time is that moment. The planting is done. You've done the hard work of gardening. You haven't quite reached the harvest season yet. And it's this fallow time. It's this moment of just exhaling. This great, joyous, celebratory exhale. It's the time when couples have time to make love and to play and to dance and to celebrate and to experience the joy of nature.
And that's where we are now, and that's what we're going to do on the 22nd.
August 22nd, we want to do a full day celebration of the Feast of the Coronation. And what we're going to do is invite everybody to share a mystery.
Need at least 15 people.
We need at least 15 people, and if I get 30, we could do 2 different shares to tell a story, your own story for each of the mysteries. We're going to let the Rosary be a story that invites us to tell our story, and we will do a whole big celebration. I wish we could be having a party here. Everybody will have to make their own cookies and drinks, which will be welcome. And we have also done the St. Anne Rosary in July, and there are so many people praying for love right now.
And August 22nd will be the 9th anniversary of Way of the Rose. It's 9th birthday.
The 9 years of Way of the Rose. It's the 9th birthday. We will have a birthday cake. I wish we could give everybody a piece. And we will crown Our Lady. And it was on the evening of early in August 22nd.
The early morning, like I think 1 or 2 a.m. Our Lady said, if you rise to say the Rosary at night, a column of saints will support your prayer. And I made my very first Rosary friend, other than Perdita, the very next day. And that was how it started. And so we invite you all to pray the Rosary with us and to crown Our Lady with flowers on August 22nd and celebrate the Feast of the Coronation with us. All of the mystery series is now up on the website, thanks to our beloved webmistress, Kimberly Stewart. And thank you all for listening tonight. And thank you for all for joining us for this whole big series. And yes, Susanna, we've got to figure out the tarot and the Rosary. I think January, let's plan it. Let's do something really fun. Very good.
Bye, everybody.
All right, bye.